Hey guys, Chris here. I want to do a video today talking about semen retention and wet dreams today. What are wet dreams, how to stop them, what they're actually telling us, and just some good techniques as well. And yeah, it's part of the semen retention practice, learning about what wet dreams are. And the more you can control them, the more you can retain more energy. And not to beat yourself up too much, it's not a relapse. That's the main point. That you're not consciously choosing it, and normally after a wet dream within 2 or 3 days you'll normally feel like you're back to where you were. So it's important to get through that day, whatever day it is, and the more it happens, your reaction as it changes is important. So different types of wet dreams. So a wet dream where it's a lot more of a sexual wet dream, it's important to notice that if it's not and you have a wet dream, then it's not the same. You probably don't feel as drained. And before we get on to like techniques about how we can stop them, because there is a lot of this online I've noticed, and maybe certain types of food and all this, but is what is the wet dream telling us? And I always go back to purpose. If you're living fully aligned with your purpose, transmuting your energy, being very creative, the wet dreams are probably going to be less. And be aware of what the wet dreams are saying in the wet dream. What was it about? Was it a wet dream of you watching porn, which might be you craving this, wanting to watch porn in your mind. So just making you more aware, and to become more aware of that and to allow it to dissolve, and maybe to just be aware of where the lustful energy is going. Maybe you've seen various images throughout the day and videos, you're maybe even actively looking for it. You might be going through your social media, looking for such pictures. So this is just important to be aware of. There is always something you can do. You don't want to blame outside things. One thing that can be detrimental to wet dreams as well are people who appear in your dreams. It could be porn stars, it could be narcissistic exes, or just ex-girlfriends in general, where you might have felt there was a massive lustful attraction there, and in a way they're in your dreams still taking your energy, which is a sign of there is still a part of you that's giving that energy away. So it's important to be aware of that. And I did have a porn star once who just kept appearing in my dream, and you kind of have these like soul ties from watching these pornographic movies and releasing your energy. There's like a karmic tie there. So I actually did some cord cutting. So I did this with someone, and then that person did not appear in my dream again. So it's important to be aware of this, and then maybe cut the ties with them. This is not necessarily like you're being taken over by some dark spirit or something. It's always about you taking responsibility, and remember that the energy might be being taken away by something, but you are ultimately giving it away, and you want to take that power back. So that's where it is with the wet dreams. When you've had one, just wake up and just journal how you go throughout the day. Where is the energy going? This is kind of known with wet dreams. It's like the male period. You're going to feel emotional, you're going to feel drained the next day. And what's important is how you react to that. Eventually, once you have quite a few wet dreams and you keep going, a wet dream is normally going to lead to a relapse as well, because you're going to feel quite lustful. You're going to be craving some sort of dopamine, and it's important to get through that day. If you get through that day after the wet dream, the next day is going to be a good day. And this could be a good day as well. I mean, after the wet dream, it's just how you react to it, and eventually you get used to it, just like a woman can get used to a period. And as a guy, you do have the ability to have that period less and less. It's just how you direct your energy. There is something that's wanting that sexual release, and to be easy on yourself. It's just you probably spent a lot of your time giving your energy away, and your body is just trying to readjust. And it's how you feel with all this energy inside you. Most guys do relapse because it just becomes too much, and it becomes some sort of release. So that's really important. So I just had some notes here. And yeah, and just don't feel like you're missing out on anything, as well, which was a feeling of mine. It's about pleasure, and it's about, where are you getting the pleasure in your life? Are you just sat in your room bored? Your sacral chakra, are you going out? Are you meeting people? Are you socializing? Are you even going something like salsa dancing, or even maybe flirting with women, this sort of stuff? This energy wants to be used, and it wants to be creative and fun, and transmuting that energy, putting it into a meaningful project. But also having fun is one of the main things. If you've just had a day where you're dancing, you've been on a jet ski, you're just having this amazing fun and this pleasure, in the sort of reality, then maybe you're less likely to have a wet dream. That's just some of my takes on it. So in terms of how you can stop the wet dreams, which is probably the most important thing which most people look for, but I thought I would talk about the other stuff because that's about how you get rid of it long term. But some things you can do to reduce it are having like an evening practice and just sitting there meditating. I remember I had a lot less wet dreams. There was an audio I used to listen to which actually said to reduce wet dreams, but I don't think it was the audio. I think it was just the fact that I listened to it for 10 minutes and I had this intention of, I'm not going to have a wet dream tonight. I'm going to sit and meditate, and I'm going to be reflective of what's going on in my day, before and during that practice you can have the intention. So the other thing as well is waking up as soon as you in the morning, because don't snooze, because some wet dreams I've had are normally when I snooze, and then normally they are quite early in the morning as well. So I think if you get up like 5 or 6, for example, it's less likely maybe you will have a wet dream, because that can be when it happens, when the testosterone is quite high. But if you snooze and then you go back to bed and you were going to go to gym, that just can make it even worse as well. You can feel even more down. So that's something I would say there. Another thing that's helped me as well is inversions. So to do like a headstand or a handstand against the wall, because the energy that's maybe in the lower chakras is going to the higher chakras, and you can do like Kundalini breath work and this sort of thing, where you more or less where you're bringing the energy up in the evening, so the energy is not sort of in the lower chakras. So I was going to put something else. Yeah, the contract, I forgot what the technique is, that sort of like the pelvic muscle, the contraction that you do is like the tantra technique to stop ejaculating, like when you're having sex, or just it's the one that stops you peeing, right? So practice that in the day, like try like you're going for a pee and then just hold in the muscles, and that's just stopping anything coming out. So what they say with tantra and this sort of non-ejaculatory sex kind of thing is you contract that muscle to stop ejaculating when you're just about to release. So if you get used to doing that and you practice that and you know how it works, during the wet dream you can also stop it coming out as well, which I've successfully done a few times. So your body's used to that, and then when it feels this sexual thing, it's like like, okay, I'm gonna not release here. And then also if you can learn lucid dreaming as well, which can be important to become more aware in the dream and more conscious. So you can be conscious in the dream and then you can stop, or you can decide to become lucid. You can manage to become lucid just before you have the wet dream as well, and you can sort of really see what's going on there. But this is maybe a bit more advanced. And then the final thing is, just focusing on creating, not doing anything destructive. Remember transmuting the energy. Negativity, maybe this is certain people listen to content. I think I spoke in the last video, semen retention can be generally quite a negative practice sometimes, because people are like, oh, I've given up on women, I'm just going to do semen retention, and all women are like this, and it's like this kind of negative energy which can be can keep you in that destructive thing. Maybe you're into the conspiracy theories or politics and all this sort of stuff. The energy can be quite negative, so this is maybe going to bring in more, you're going to feel more like releasing the energy. But if you're in a good flow state and you're you're in a good part of your life, the wet dreams should be less. You know, if you're in this position where you're less likely to think about porn or even want to watch porn and this sort of stuff, then it's less likely maybe you will have wet dreams as well. But yeah, keep trying. Sometimes I went 6 weeks to 2 months with no wet dreams. Like I've done, you know, just over 9 months now. So, and I've done 6 months before, and yeah, I have gone a long period without. But then sometimes it's like 2 days in a row, or you know, so it's figuring out. Each time it taught me something, and I'm more aware of where my energy's going and my relationship with lust in particular. If the lust sort of is just constantly suppressed, if you're like, oh, I'm not checking social media, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, but then you know if you see that image you're gonna go crazy, you know, chances are the wet dreams will still happen. So yeah, thought I'd do that video for you guys. Hope there's some good stuff in there. And wet dreams are just, I've got other friends who've been doing semen retention for a while, and it is an ongoing thing, but I also know people who have done it for a lot longer and they've gone 6 months, 9 months without having a wet dream. So it is possible, and sometimes it just takes a while. You know, if you've been going 30, 40 years of your life and you've been releasing, you know, every week, every 2 weeks, you know, it's going to take a bit of time for your body to adjust. But there's also, you know, the more I think you live and focus on living and living the best life you can, then they should naturally reduce. And they're not necessarily always bad, it's just showing you where the energy's going. You know, you could have some sort of succubus kind of attachment, or, you know, some sort of lustful thoughts or something. You know, it's just telling you what's going on. And when it's in the dream, it's normally a bit more powerful. You know, it's more likely to hit you a bit harder. You know how you feel a bit drained the next day, you're more likely, subconsciously, you are probably making changes. So they are normal. Yeah, so I thought I would mention all of that. I hope you enjoyed this video, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.